This really is a superhuman effort. He's dominated this event from the very start and blown away his rivals. And now the end is in sight. He's coming up to the line. It's Madeley. Madeley's moment in London. Richard Madeley takes Olympic gold.
Richard, hey, come on, wake up.
It's not all me. I'd like to thank my family, my trainers, my
Richard,
coach.
wake up.
What? Hey? But I thought I'd just struck gold.
Well, you have, sort of. Gold is the next title on the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusive to WHSmith.
Hear what's made our spring collection this 2013 with Richard and Judy on the Book Club podcast, exclusive to WHSmith.
We need few excuses to return to the summer of 2012.
One of the greatest sporting summers ever.
The story of Zoe Castle and Kate Meadows may well bring back some of those glorious moments.
It was the only time she could ride past a 20-foot-high floodlit billboard of her own face and notice only the helpful illumination that it gave to the road surface.
And because you're already winners with us, here's how to get 50% off all our book club recommendations.
Check out the Richard and Judy collection and get any of the titles for half price with our special code. Just quote 35 10 10 55. That's 35 10 10 55 at the tills. The code's also on your screen now. This offer entitles you to purchase one of the Richard and Judy Book Club titles for half the RRP. Subject to availability, cannot be used in conjunction with any other promotional voucher. No cash alternative.
Hello, I'm Chris Cleave and my latest novel is called Gold.
Welcome again to the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusively with WHSmith. And let me just read 4 one-word reviews of this book off the front cover. Superb, thrilling, inspirational and magnificent. All national newspaper titles referring to Gold by Chris Cleave. Now, the thing about the kind of novel writing that Chris does is that you have to have a sense of timing, because he writes very much in the present moment, in the present day. All his novels are set in very, very contemporary frames. And boy, did you get this one right. Because Gold, as the title implies, is set in 3 Olympics, but essentially in the London Olympics of this past year. And it's set in the Velodrome. It's the cyclist's story. Did you know, when you decided to write this story, and we'll come on to the details in a second, how successful Britain's cyclists were going to be this time?
I had an inkling of it, and of course they did really well in Beijing, and we knew that they'd carried on that programme. I knew that the Olympics was going to be a big thing. You know, it's the greatest story on earth coming to my home city.
Because you're from London, aren't you?
Yeah. So I wanted to cover it, and that was the starting point of the book. I thought I wanted to mark that moment, because, as you say, my stuff is about how it feels to live now in Britain. They're very British novels about the excitement and the fun.
But it was actually astonishing, wasn't it, what happened at the London Olympics this year? I mean, there were lots of sort of gainsayers that right up until the whole thing started. People were predicting doom and disaster and God knows what. And in the event, it was just absolutely amazing, and the kind of atmosphere that surrounded the whole country was just fascinating. Why did you concentrate on cyclists?
The beauty of the sport. The first time I walked into a velodrome, all of the hairs went up on the back of my neck. It's such a beautiful architectural space. Even if you didn't know what happened there, you'd think,
the elliptical, sloping.
That just comes back to itself always. Yeah, these big, gorgeous banked curves and the lovely wooden arcs of it. If you just walked in, you'd think, the artist has done a great job here. And then you realise that people are allowed to race around this thing as fast as they can, and indeed if they're not going fast enough, they'll fall off. You know, it's a beautiful sport.
There are kind of twin themes in this book. It's essentially it's about two women who are both cyclists, Olympians, great rivals and great friends at the same time. And one of them has to step back from the sport. It almost breaks her heart because she gets pregnant and she has a baby, and the baby turns out to have leukemia. So it looks at that aspect of life, but also at this extraordinary competitiveness that drives people at this very, very top level. You researched this book in great detail. Can you analyse for us what it is about the Victoria Pendletons of this world which drives them to the achievements that they succeed in?
Well, I met 2 kinds of athletes while I was researching the book. There are people who are very motivated by success, people who absolutely love it, who light up when they win, who are completely full of sunshine. And someone who I didn't meet during it, but who I think exemplifies that, is someone like Jessica Ennis. She just bounds onto every stage and is clearly loving it. Then I've met other athletes who are more motivated by the avoidance of failure. Right? And they tend to have in their past something pretty dark, something that happened to them, something that they don't want to happen again. There'll often be a figure in their lives who's pivotal in terms of their development, for better or for worse. And without naming names, I spoke with some athletes who are terrified of failure more than they're enjoying success.
Really? That's a horrible way to live, isn't it?
I don't know if it's unique to athletes, though.
No.
I mean, one of the things that I loved about researching these lives was because you're talking about how much do you want to succeed in your field versus how much balance and joy and comfort do you want in your life. It's a question that all of us have. It's framed in various different ways, professional versus family life or work-life balance. I'm interested in taking these everyday questions that we all face and pushing them to an extreme. And it doesn't get more extreme than the life of an Olympian, because it's pretty much the most extreme job I could imagine. It's necessary for everybody else in the world to fail in order for you to succeed.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
extraordinary.
That's very well put.
Yeah.
But you talk about, I know you did quite a lot of cycling yourself with some top athletes as part of your research for this, which must have been exhausting.
You did 22 hours a week?
I did for a while. I mean, I made myself ill in the end.
Did you?
I went into it with a lot of hubris. I thought to myself, well, if I can't, I certainly won't be as quick as these Olympians. I'll never get that fast. But there's no reason why I can't put myself through the same intensity of training to see what the effects are on body and mind. And the end is that I destroyed myself. It took about 3 months.
A broken man.
After the
He's
first...
only 15, this guy.
Yeah, aged very quickly after the first month.
No, but I mean, if you... presumably, I mean, you talk about the difference between Olympians and just good athletes. Presumably, Olympians, to a certain extent, they must be born.
What, genetically?
Genetically. There must be that strong genetic element that pushes them way beyond anyone else.
Yeah. That was the very first thing I learned. The difference between... the difference in people's ability to turn oxygen and food into raw speed is much greater than the difference, for example, in people's heights. Right. And that's a natural thing that we're born with. And you can train that a little, and at the very high level, you can train it a lot. Right. But you're competing against other people who are born with superpowers.
So you found, when you were doing your training to try and discover the frame of mind necessary to make these achievements, that you plateaued quite quickly. There was genuinely a concrete ceiling that no matter what training you did, what food you ingested, what high-powered drinks you took, you were never going to get beyond that. But a genetically born-to-succeed Olympian has got that much more room to go up. Yeah.
It's a really nice metaphor. I mean,
well, it's yours. It's in the back of the book. It's in the question and answers that we sent to you.
I think, imagine a 10-storey building. I could train as hard as I liked, and that would make the difference between getting to the second and third floor. Whereas an Olympian, like someone like a Victoria Pendleton or a Jessica Ennis, they're born on the 8th floor, and their struggle is to get to the 10th.
Yes. Yeah. The other research that you did in great depth was just because you needed to know what it's like to have a child who's got a serious disease like leukemia. You spent a lot of time at Great Ormond Street, didn't you?
Yeah, and that was the most interesting as well as the most harrowing research I've done for any of my books. It was very unexpected. Well, I'd expected it to be very mournful and sad, and I'd expected a lot of misery, and there is that, but it was also the most joyful place I'd ever been. And in a time, I think, where we're surrounded by these stories of our national institutions disappointing us, actually this was a place that the longer I spent there, the more I fell in love with it, the more it was inspiring, the more I understood that the work that the doctors and the nurses are doing there is world class. The parents, there's something about the atmosphere of that place that brings something out of them, and it's a place where human emotion is experienced at the extreme, right? Yeah. So again, for my purposes, these are the stories I like to tell. It's where ordinary humans, with the love that they have for the people in their lives, are put in these extreme corners and asked these very difficult questions that life sometimes asks us. Okay, what will you choose?
Well, you write about it beautifully, those extremes of emotions and those extremes of physical achievement, really extraordinary.
And the actual sort of bursts and flashes of activity in the Olympic stadiums that you write about here are as exciting as watching it on the telly was this summer. I mean, you really do capture the moment beautifully. I mean, you really literally made my heart beat faster at moments.
But not enough to get on a bike.
Pardon? I do get on my bike, thank you very much. I just don't push towards the ceiling in the way that some people do. Anyway, it's a wonderful book. Many congratulations, and justly has earned some wonderful reviews from people other than us.
They went quicker. Zoe grinned into the wind. This was pure racing because there was no prize and no glory and no one knew who you were. There was no recognition and no fame. You could ride to a place beyond yourself. This was what she loved. When she raced like this, on the street, she couldn't think about her life. You were intent on not making the tiniest error. You could ride so fast. The thing that I remember the most so far about writing, they're all very intimate, secret moments that no one else would have noticed. I haven't cared at all about winning prizes or about particular moments in publication or about sales. The big moments for me are moments when I've understood how to write a character and I've just sat there on my own in a library just with sort of white light bursting through my head because I've understood how to do a thing, and that I've broken through to a new level. It's like it's getting through to new levels in the craft that are exciting. That's a good question. Why do I write? I love it. I love the craft of putting sentences together. I like trying to express an emotion in several different ways until finally it seems true and it seems correct. I like the sensation that you get when you think, right, a reader will understand this, and it's the most simple expression of something quite complicated that I could have put on the page. I think that's what the job is.
I think one of the reasons the book works so well is this guy does so much research. I mean, he spent many, many days at Great Ormond Street getting into the zone of what it's like to have a child that's very, very ill, to be the parent, to be the child. He says it actually transformed his comprehension of that scenario. He said it was far less painful than he was expecting. He was actually incredibly impressed by the atmosphere, the upbeat nature of the parents, the courage of the kids. It left him feeling uplifted, not depressed at all.
Yeah, I mean, actually, also, I mean, he obviously spent an awful lot of time training as a cyclist.
20 hours a week.
20 hours a week, which must have been very painful, because as he says, it's not that he's not that good. He did push himself, but the difference between, you know, him pushing himself and a proper Olympian is genetic.
And what I thought came over really well throughout the book was this degree of competition between the competitors, between the athletes, which you just glimpse really on the television, you know, when you see them in their final sort of apotheosis, you know, coming around the curve for the last time. But you don't obviously see when they're training, that's invisible. But that burning desire to win, as he said, in the end, if you win gold, there's no one else on the planet better than you. Everyone else on the planet is worse than you, and you know that, and that feeds your hunger to be the best.
He was very interesting about the psychology of Olympians, I thought.
As is the book.
Yeah.
The book's very revealing on that. I mean, I wished I'd read it actually before the Olympics, before watching Pendleton and co going around, because it would have given me a completely different insight into what motivates them. Anyway, it's such a good story as well. He plots a very, very good yarn.
Get great tips on how to write your own bestseller with exclusive content on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Richard and Judy Book Club.
Well, next up, a mystery or two set amidst the destruction of war.
When she walked into the ward that night, What struck him most was how young she looked, spirited, hopeful, and from his bed he drank in every detail of her.
Julia Gregson's Jasmine Nights weaves its way into our collection and our hearts.